Dear all, welcome to the course of Constitution of India. I am Lekshmi Vijayakumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Basic Sciences and Humanities, Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology. In this session, I am going to discuss about the fundamental rights of Indian citizens from Module 2. Every human has rights. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the political theorists argued that the rights are given to us by nature or God. This means that the rights were not conferred by a ruler or society. Rather, we are born with them. In recent years, the term human rights is being used more than the term natural rights, because of the fact that the natural law appears unacceptable today. What is the meaning of rights? Rights literally means those freedoms which are essential for personal good as well as the good of the community. Rights are those essential conditions of social life without which no person can generally realize his best. These are the essential conditions for the health of both individual and a society. It is only when people get and enjoy rights they can develop their personalities and contribute their best services to the society. All human beings are born free and equal. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in December 1948 was a milestone document in history of human rights. What do you mean by human rights? Human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person in the world, from birth until death. Everyone is entitled to get the human rights. Human rights can never be taken away, although they can sometimes be restricted. For example, if a person breaks the law or the interest of national security, the human rights apply regardless of where you are from, what you believe, or how you choose to live your life. It includes the right to life, right to liberty, right to freedom from slavery, etc. What do you mean by fundamental rights? Fundamental rights are the rights. It's a guarantee against state action. Fundamental rights are a set of rights laid down by the Constitution of India to safeguard the basic freedoms that an individual needs in order to live with dignity as a human and a citizen. The fundamental rights are the basic human rights enshrined in the Constitution of India, which are guaranteed to all citizens. They are applied without discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, etc. Significantly, fundamental rights are enforceable by the courts subject to certain conditions. Let us discuss the difference between ordinary rights and fundamental rights. Ordinary rights are protected and enforced by ordinary law. Fundamental rights are protected and enforced by the Constitution of the country. Ordinary rights may be changed by the legislature by ordinary process of law, but a fundamental right only be changed by amending the Constitution itself. Judiciary has the power and responsibility to protect fundamental rights from the violations of the government. These rights are called fundamental because of two reasons. They are enshrined in the Constitution, which guarantees them. They are justiciable. In case of a violation, a person can approach a court of law. Why do we have fundamental rights? The fundamental rights are established to prevent the authoritarian and despotic rule in the country and protect the liberties and freedom of people against the invasion by the state. If we don't have fundamental rights, government will become very powerful, government will become more arrogant, authoritative, and then they start exploit people. For example, we have the right to expression. We know that now in social media we criticize the government. If we don't have these fundamental rights, if one person is talking against the government, he can be imprisoned. That is why fundamental rights are important. To protect the liberties and freedom of citizens, To prevent authoritarian and dictatorial rule in the country, for the all-round development of the individual, we need fundamental rights. Fundamental rights aims at establishing a government of law and not of men. Let us examine the reasons for the inclusion of fundamental rights to the Constitution. Firstly, the main political party, the Congress, had for long been demanding these rights against the British rule. During the British rule in India, human rights were violated by the rulers on a very wide scale. Therefore, the framers of the Constitution, many of whom had suffered during the British regime, had a very positive attitude towards these rights. Indian society is fragmented into many religious, cultural and linguistic groups, and it was necessary to declare fundamental rights to give to the people a sense of security and confidence. History of fundamental rights. In India, Simon Commission and Joint Parliamentary Committee, which were responsible for the Government of India Act 1935, had rejected the idea of enacting Declaration of Fundamental Rights on the ground that abstract declarations are useless unless there exists the will and the means to make them effective. Regardless of British opinion, the makers of the Constitution adopted fundamental rights to safeguard the individual liberty and also for ensuring social, economic, political justice for every member of the community. The rights have their origin in many sources, including England Bill of Rights, United States Bill of Rights and France Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in December 1948. The fundamental rights were included in the first draft constitution, the second draft constitution and the third and final draft constitution being prepared by the drafting committee. The fundamental rights are enshrined in the part 3rd of the Indian Constitution from Article 12 to Article 35. Can the rights of citizens be amended in the Constitution? Yes. The Supreme Court has ruled out that all provisions of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights, can be amended. Earlier, we had 7 fundamental rights. Of this, right to property has been eliminated by the 44th Amendment Act. There are 6 fundamental rights which are applicable to all citizens to India. The rights are the right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, right to constitutional remedies. The first one, right to equality. The right to equality is one of the chief guarantees given in Articles 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18 of the Constitution. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or equal protection of laws within the territory of India. If you are the Indian citizen, you have to be treated equally. You cannot be denied entry in any public places. You cannot be subject to different set of laws than the rest of the people. Right to equality guarantees equal rights for everyone, irrespective of religion, gender, caste, race or place of birth. It ensures equal employment opportunities in the government and ensures against discrimination by the state in matters of employment on the basis of caste, religion, etc. Right to equality from Article 14 to Article 18. Article 14. The state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of laws within the territory of India on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. Article 15. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. Article 16. There shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. Article 17. Abolition of untouchability. Article 18. Abolition of all titles except military and academic. Next is the right to freedom. Freedom is the most important ideals cherished by any democratic society. If you are the citizen of India, you have the right to be free, free to express your thought, free to gather peacefully, free to obtain information regarding the working of the government. The right to freedom is stated in Article 19, 20, 21 and 22 with the view of guaranteeing individual rights that were considered vital by the framers of Indian Constitution. The right to freedom gives citizens the basic freedom with respect to speech and expression, form associations, freedom of personal liberty, freedom to live a life of dignity, etc. Right to freedom from Article 19 to 22. Article 19 protection of six rights concerning the freedom of speech and expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of residence, freedom of profession. Article 20 protection with respect to conviction for offences. Article 21 right to life and personal liberty. Article 21A right to elementary education. Article 22 protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. The next is right against exploitation. This right implies the prohibition of traffic in human beings, beggar and other form of forced labor. It also implies the prohibition of children in factories, etc. The Constitution prohibits the employment of children under 14 years in hazardous condition. The right against exploitation from Article 23 to 24. Article 23, the prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 24, the prohibition of employment of children in factories. Next is right to freedom of religion. This indicates the secular nature of Indian polity. There is equal respect given to all religions. There is freedom of conscience, profession, practice and propagation of religion. The state has no official religion. The right to freedom from Article 25 to 28. The Article 25, freedom of conscience, free profession, practice and propagation of religion. Article 26, freedom to manage religious affairs. Article 27, freedom as to payment of taxes for promotion of any particular religion. Article 28, freedom as to attendance at religious instruction or religious worship in certain educational institutions. Next is cultural and educational rights. These rights protect the rights of religious, cultural and linguistic minorities by facilitating them to preserve their heritage and culture. Educational rights are for ensuring education for everyone without any discrimination. Cultural and educational rights from Article 29 to 30. Article 29, the protection of interest of minorities, and Article 30, the right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. Right to education is every child's fundamental right. The last one is right to constitutional remedies. The Constitution guarantees remedies if citizens' fundamental rights are violated. The government cannot infringe upon or curb anyone's rights. When these rights are violated, the people can approach the courts. The right to constitutional remedies from Article 32 to 35 explains the right to constitutional remedies. The Article 32 is known as the soul of the Constitution of India. Right to constitutional remedies, it allows individuals to seek redressal for the violation of their fundamental rights. The fundamental rights can be suspended during the period of emergency made by the President under Article 352. Fundamental rights play a significant role because they are most essential for the attainment of the full intellectual, moral and spiritual status of an individual. Therefore, the objective behind the inclusion of fundamental rights in the Constitution was to establish a government of law to preserve individual liberty, building an equitable society, and establish a welfare state. We can conclude that the Constitution will lose its importance if there is no fundamental rights. Thank you.